joining us on the show today is Emily Leedom, Executive Director of Catholic Family Services. This is my first time guest co-hosting.
You're doing great.
Thanks.
Chris,
Thanks,
you're doing
Emily.
great.
We're going to talk about surviving winter, Emily. And today, as we're recording, it's winter.
The heart of winter.
The heart of winter.
It's
It's cold outside. Sunny, which is nice.
Yes, but so
so
stinking
cold. So,
Yes.
you've talked before about how winter, and many people have experienced how hard winter can be.
Yeah.
A really difficult time for people. Why is that? What do we know about the winter blahs?
Yeah. So some people actually really love winter. I'm convinced they're introverted. And don't require a lot of sunlight. So
both of those things.
Yeah,
yes.
I think if you are one of those people, you are probably thriving,
loving it
right now. Or people that really embrace a lot of like the winter activities. So they still love to go. Maybe they love to go snowshoeing,
right.
Or maybe they're parents of little kids and they are so eager to get out and go sledding. That kind of thing. Are you that kind of person?
No, but that's why we need snow. Like,
yes.
Cold with no snow.
Cold with
is just
no
awful.
snow is the worst.
It's the worst.
Have you been up north recently? They have so much snow.
Christmas, but not since then.
Like up to your hips in snow. But I think people like that maybe say, "What are you talking about? I actually really love winter." But for a lot of us, even if we do try and embrace some of those winter activities and that kind of thing, it can often be really, really challenging. And there's a couple of reasons that I think go into that. Number one, the lack of sunlight. So having less sunlight, it messes with our internal clock, basically. Yep. So, right, normally the sun in the summertime, for example, the sun wakes us up, and we kind of go to bed when the sun goes down. Now I leave work, and it's dark outside, and I wake up, and it's still dark outside. Yep. And so that just has an effect on our serotonin levels and on our internal clock. So I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is what I was referring to earlier regarding activities. So when we are, when it's this cold, it's a lot harder for most of us to be really motivated to get out and get some fresh air. Yep. And so that's the common cabin fever, right? Yep. That's kind of what that is. So I think that's a big part of it. And in that desire to stay warm, in that lack of desire to get out, get fresh air, that kind of thing, move our body, oftentimes we can struggle with kind of lethargy. Lethargy. Is it really?
It's lethargy.
Lethargy. We can really struggle with some of those things because we're not moving our body, we're not exercising, all of those things that we know. Our doctor has told us from the beginning that we should do. I think it's really hard. It's a lot harder to be motivated to do some of those things. Most of us gain a little bit of weight during the holiday season. Yep. Because we want to eat all the cookies, try all the ice cream, that kind of thing. And then come January, we're like, all right, here we go. New Year's resolutions. Those last for about 2 weeks. And then we're still kind of in the grind of not being able to get outside and move and all of those things in the way that we would like to. So for a lot of us, that's kind of what's going on. And I think that can just present a challenge for us. Do you have one of those happy lamps?
I don't.
I've never used one. Yeah, I don't know if it's a legit thing or not.
Oh, I think they're totally legit. Wait,
I know. Okay, I know
What's
they
a happy
exist.
Lamp?
It's the lamp. It's like a therapy though, where you have to sit in front of it for like 20, 30 minutes, something like that. When I heard of happy lamps, and maybe they've evolved since I looked into them, I thought it was more like a lamp that you put on your table, for example, and just continue to do your work and that kind of thing. It's really not. It's more of like you sit very, very close to it. In front of it, it's like a panel, and it.
Okay, no, I haven't heard of that.
Radiates something on you.
Because there are the lamps. I mean, we have friends and colleagues in the building who have lamps that the light they emit is more akin to actual natural sunlight, and then therefore can help with vitamin D.
Oh, I want that. Okay, I'm gonna have to look back into this because
that's not what a happy lamp is, though.
No, not what I was referring to, but I think something like that is brilliant. And like I said, because so many people, whether we recognize it or not, like we're made for fresh air, we're made for sunlight, that kind of thing. And when we spend so much time indoors, I think that can have just effects on us in various ways.
So what are some of the effects that, like, where can this go if it's left unchecked?
Fatigue. I'm laughing because we just had this conversation in my office last week. We were all like, why are we so tired?
Oh, right.
Like, oh my gosh, I just, we're hitting our cheeks, kind of trying to wake ourselves up a little bit. So fatigue can be a big part of that. I think a lack of desire to engage socially can be a part of that. And honestly, it's interesting. I think, we're starting to see some of the effects of COVID and the isolation of that and the fear around being around sickness or the hesitancy to be around sickness. Anybody listening with little kids knows that it has been a brutal winter. I mean, it's a revolving door of sickness in most kids, in most young families' homes right now. And so I think that can also contribute positive or negatively to kind of a withdrawal from community and some of those things. So I think that can be one of the effects. General lower levels of energy. So even if it's not you're falling asleep at the table, it might be that you just don't have that like get up and go, or that feeling of hope or that feeling of, right? Like, man, when Easter comes and it's a beautiful day, isn't that just like Easter's going to happen, rain or snow?
Right.
But man, those Easters,
with a bright spring day.
It's like you just enter into it more fully, right? Or there's like something about it that's like, I just am so joyful. It's kind of the same thing, So all of those things impact our ability to have that energy and, or the lack of sunlight affects our energy levels in that way.
So is it a big deal? I mean, the winter blues, the winter
for a lot of
blahs.
people.
I guess where I'm going is this something where we should really be self-aware of?
Yes.
And therefore, how do I do that? What am I looking for, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really think, Chris, there's varying degrees. So you said earlier, like, this is just not really a thing for you. I was talking to my friend the other day. Like, she's like, no, I kind of thrive. Like, I really like winter. Because she's an introvert and doesn't require a lot of sunlight. I don't know. She's like a vampire or something. Just kidding. Sorry.
And you're her friend.
Which I know. She's so great. But I think there's a whole spectrum, right? So I actually tend to be one of those people that struggle, but I would say more in a mild case. So there's actually a diagnosis for individuals who really struggle. It's called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. And that's a more intense side of the spectrum, and it can even develop into more chronic depression or something like that. So I think it's totally something that we want to be aware of. And I think for most people, I'm not just trying to say that most people are like me to make myself feel better, but I think I probably there's a big chunk of us that fall in the middle here where we can tell it affects us. It's more or less mild, but it affects us nevertheless. And I think the awareness and why it matters is because when we start to name and recognize those things, we can actually start to overcome them or plan things in our life to really, to step out of that place. So in a spirit of vulnerability, this was me for this last week. I had no energy. I would get home, I would put dinner on our table, and I was ready to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I just was tired. Getting up in the morning, I felt like, did I even rest, even though I had gotten, a full night's sleep? I couldn't quite snap out of it. And to the point where I was recognizing I was short-tempered. I was really quick to be frustrated with my beautiful children. I was less motivated to do those things that just steward my home, get rid of the dishes after dinner, that kind of thing, all that stuff. So that's where I was at this last week. Yesterday, I had a little come to Jesus moment and said, all right, I really need to lean into some of the things that I know are going to help me step out of this funk that I'm in, right? And that's really what it is. It kind of felt like a funk. So I I went to confession. I had a beautiful conversation with a priest who I love and just gave him permission to challenge me. I exercised. I left a little bit early to get a better exercise in. I just got my heart rate moving, or my heart pumping, my body moving. And this is going to be a very controversial thing that I'm about to say, I went and laid in a tanning bed for 7 minutes. And that's probably really odd and awkward for some of our listening audience. Bill's laughing over there.
And our producer.
But there's some reality that I was like, I need to feel some sun.
Yep.
I need to feel some sun on my face because it's affecting me. I can tell my hormone levels are just not thriving.
Yep.
And let me tell you, I was like a new person last night.
Right.
And in fact, even this morning, my husband just said, Em, I'm so excited to see you just thriving and feeling like you're in a better place. And it's so fun for me to watch you, lean in right now and whatever. So it's just but I'm attentive to, okay, moving my body, going to confession, taking care of my soul in a deeper way, just kind of inviting a spirit of restoration. And getting a little sunlight on my face was really healing.
Yep. If you're just tuning in, I'm Chris Burgwald, filling in for Renee Kranz, talking today with Emily Leedom, the Executive Director of Catholic Family Services. Basically, seasonal affective disorder, the fitting acronym SAD, the winter blues, the winter blues, and how it is a real thing that, many of us recognize it in ourselves or friends, family, and so on. So you just talked about things like fatigue, lethargy, those sorts of things. So if I'm, and you described, as you said, being transparent and vulnerable with the listeners, you kind of recognized that in yourself and you took some steps.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend, what if I see this in other people?
Yeah.
No, more seriously.
Yeah, what did my husband do last week?
Right.
When he saw this in me. Yeah.
Right. So what do you...
How do you support people?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things. I think the invite is one big thing. So, so for example, my husband recognizing this in me that I just was like, just am struggling. He put a date night on our calendar. And that's what I mean by the invite. Finding an opportunity to get out with that person, whether it's a friend or your spouse or even your children. We can really pay attention to this in your children, high school age children or high school age kids. This can really be apparent. But find time with them to really do something fun, to do something more specifically outside the norm. So for us, we might say we're going to go for a hike. Or here in Sioux Falls, there's a really fun rock climbing gym. We go rock climbing pretty regularly because it's just something that's a little different. It kind of changes the pace of things. In the winter, often what happens is things can start to feel monotonous. Mm-hmm. It's like, is spring ever going to be here, right? Where in summer, I don't know that anybody has ever said, wow, summer feels monotonous because we're planning a lot of vacations and we're doing this and we're out and about all the time. And it feels like, it goes so fast. Normally January, February, and March, even though it's 3 months, just like June, July, and August, that 3 months feels a lot slower to people. Or it feels more monotonous, maybe not slow, but monotonous. So finding things that are outside the norm to encourage that friend or that spouse to do, I think is really fun. Something else that we've done is we did a little subscription to something called Masterclass, where we're learning new skills and then practicing those things. And so instead of watching Netflix, we don't have Netflix. So this is kind of our little thing where we're learning something, but it's still relaxing. We can still be at home and be cozy, that sort of stuff. So I think those are a couple of ideas. And then if there's the openness and the receptivity, I think to help people name it. A lot of times people have no idea, like, why am I feeling this way, or why am I so agitated? And they might not even be able to ask the question why. They're just experiencing the agitation, the fatigue, those kinds of things. Helping people to name it by simply saying, you know what, I think these winter months are just really hard. I think it's hard when we're not moving. Like, how can I help you get some of those habits reinstated in your life that you really treasure or really find important?
Do you think this is okay? It seems to me that this is more of a problem in January, February than it is in December.
Mm-hmm.
Because
there's nothing.
Right.
There's nothing. And there's Lent. So that came out wrong. I'm not blaming Lent. I'm not blaming Lent. Praise the Lord. I feel like actually when Lent comes around, I'm always ready for Lent, But Lent, by its very nature, has a very different demeanor, right, than like prepping for Christmas.
Right.
And so there is, I think, in December, people are kind of excited, like let it snow, right? We sing songs about letting it snow, and we love like that frostbite feel as we're wrapping up in our coats and whatever. I think January, February, there's really not this like hope at the end of it. Easter has actually, in the last couple of years, quickly became my absolute favorite holiday.
Mm-hmm. That's because
my favorite celebration. Yeah. Actually, it's really fun when Easter happens before my birthday.
Right?
Normally, my birthday's in Lent, but I treasure it so much because it kind of is. The Lord knew what He was doing. Like, what an experience of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Prepping for Easter, walking through the journey of Lent, which often has this tone of a penitential tone.
Yep.
So I think that's partly why January, February, and even March end up feeling so much longer, is we feel like, man, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? When is Easter showing up?
So it's funny you say that too, because we're recording this on Wednesday, February 2nd, which is the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord.
Yeah.
So traditionally, it's Candlemas.
Yeah.
So there was it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
There's actually a connection between those two feasts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's
Okay,
fascinating. We
cool.
don't have time to get into that. And I wonder, so this is kind of me putting on my hat. I wonder if there's a way where we've lost in our Catholic culture some of those things. Like it used to be back in the day, Christmas tide, not Christmas season, but the Christmas tide will go until February 2nd.
Yeah.
So not the hymns, the carols and so on, people would sing Christmas carols in January.
Yes.
And we just, variety of reasons.
We've moved away from that.
We've moved away from that, lost it, however you want to describe that. And I do wonder, and again, like I didn't do anything special. I haven't done anything special today. I won't do anything particularly special today. But if there's ways where we can, as Catholics, not just as individuals or as families, but if there's a way in terms of our culture, and that's a bigger question than our conversation today, but ways for us to recover as communities of faith some of those liturgical markers that might help us.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're so right, Chris. And part of it is we start celebrating Christmas so early that by the time January 1 hits or February 26th, we're kind of ready to get back to normal life.
Right.
It's like, we're missing the beauty, really, I think, of these seasons and the ways that they were actually intended to sustain us through these times.
I rarely have the thing that many people do of when they're putting the tree away or the decorations away that, I did this year.
You did this year.
I did. And that's especially because our oldest is going off to college next year. So this is the last Christmas with everybody at home still. I mean, she'll be home for Christmas again, but you know what I mean?
I do.
And I like part of me, just that desire to sustain that Christmas spirit, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I do think shifting in just the spirit of the liturgical season that we're talking about. When is Ash Wednesday this year? March
2nd.
March 2nd. Yeah.
So a month away.
So we're one month away from Lent. I think one thing that we can do is to start looking ahead liturgically in that way. And how do we want Lent to actually be kind of a restorative time, but still honoring the penitential reality that it is. And so, and the only thing it's difficult to describe, but I think in a lot of ways, like we're in the heart of winter right now. It's challenging, I think, to align some of those realities with the spirit of Lent actually gives it purpose.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And I think there's a way where we can be, so Advent is penitential and yet it's a joyful season.
Yes.
So I think there's a way, it's just kind of foreign to our experience.
Yep.
But I think there's a way for us to experience the penitential reality of Lent joyfully.
Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. And then aligning some of the challenges that some of us might be experiencing around the lack of sunlight and the cold and wanting the spring and that kind of thing, really allowing that to like beautifully meld with our entrance into Lent in that joyful penitence, in that surrendering of it. And again, just kind of making it have purpose, because in some ways it's like, why do I live in a place where the air hurts my face? I think if we can align that to just like, this is where God has me, and laugh and unite that, I think it's a powerful thing.
So to recap, if you recognize, oh my gosh, that's totally what Emily's talking about is describing me, move, exercise if you can.
Not move locations, or do that. Well, you can move to Florida too.
Right, with everybody else these days.
Yeah.
But move around, try to exercise, try to get sunlight artificially or naturally if you're able. And then just this last thing we were talking about, maybe try to be looking ahead already liturgically to what's coming, and you maybe use that away. And then maybe enlist the support of the people around you, family, friends, loved ones.
Amen.
All right. Emily, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Chris.
Folks, thanks for listening or watching. If you aren't following us on social media, please do so. You can join us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube to keep up on everything going on in the diocese. You can also find out all kinds of information about the diocese, parishes, events at our website, sfcatholic.org. That'll be it for today. Hope you'll join us next week for more Catholic Views.